I'm Maria Hall Brown. Today on LA Currents. They were known as the Pullman Porters, and their organizing was the first step on the road to civil rights. Later, LA's Bureau of Street Lighting celebrates 100 years with plans for the future. But first, from the Convention Center expansion to encouraging local film production, the Board of Public Works delivers a wide range of projects. I sat down with Steve Kang, who leads the board, to find out more about their oversight and some of the Olympic-sized challenges ahead. Well, in May of 2025, our guest today made history by becoming the first Asian American to lead the commissioners for the Board of Public Works. I'm delighted to be joined by Stephen Kang. So nice to have you here.
Thank you for being here. I'm delighted to join you today.
For someone who's not familiar, the Board of Public Works impacts a swath of the city. What are some of the areas that the commission actually has oversight on?
Sure. We're a 5-member body, all appointed by the mayor with confirmation by the city council. What makes us so unique is that we're all full-time. We're the only full-time commission body in the city. We meet 3 times a week, similar to city council, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we hold over 150 public meetings. And the role of the board is really to provide that oversight, transparency, public accountability, and that governance to 5 of the most critical infrastructure core building blocks of our city. So we oversee the Bureau of Sanitation, lights, streets, contracts, and engineering that basically works on pretty much all the public right-of-ways, from your streets to your sidewalks to your trees to your sewers to new construction projects, and then leading up to the Olympics as well. Right now, we're in sort of that growing pains phase where you're seeing a lot of construction in different parts of town, but you're not seeing those headlines and you're not seeing sort of the final ribbon cutting projects that are coming to life. But what I tell them is that our city has been working on this for many years before, because a lot of the infrastructure projects are not just city standalone, but it is a partnership with Metro, with Caltrans, with all the other government entities that help manage the city of Los Angeles. So for example, there's a brand new Purple Line that's been an underground metro project that is partnership with the city, that connecting from the Wilton Theater in Koreatown, Wilshire, and Western to UCLA. So with stops, once that's open, way in before the Olympics, that's an 18-minute one-way. Those things are going to be opening up. I know the People Mover system at LAX. There's going to be other underground construction projects, and also many of the sidewalks and the trees and the streets are now being prepped for the games ahead of time. Most recently, along with the City Council, the Mayor, the Board of Public Works also approved the construction contract for the LA Convention Center expansion and modernization project. So that is a very robust project that will expand the size of the convention center. We felt that the urgency of the moment in terms of revitalizing downtown LA to where it needs to be could not wait another 3 years, because, you know, a lot of these public infrastructure projects take many years to develop and complete, and we didn't want to wait until after the Olympics to get started on this project. And also, you know, time is money, and every day that we wait, you know, construction costs will rise even further. And I know there are concerns about the budget and cost overruns. So yes, there has been some delays, unfortunately, because of the fires and recently the ice raids. Those things are not helping to move projects along. But I have hope that, you know, and I have firm belief that when we have a firm deadline, and we do have a firm deadline because we can't push back the Olympics. So our staff and our construction partners and our labor partners are well aware of that timeline. We can get it done on time.
I have to ask you about the 105 freeway.
Sure, that is a Caltrans and a Metro joint project, although because it impacts our city's right-of-way, it is a partnership. It is led by Caltrans because freeways are within the jurisdiction of the state of California under Caltrans. However, because it runs within the city of Los Angeles, it is a partnership. So 105 freeway project is what we're essentially doing. We've already started the phase 1 earlier of 2020. 2025 is to convert sort of the carpool lanes into the fast track lanes. So 2 lanes of fast track on each side of the freeway. And that should be completed within 3 years in advance of the Olympics to ensure that we have drivers and people moving from point A to point B for the Olympic Games.
In terms of all the things that make a city run, in particular in Los Angeles, the film industry has become kind of one of those conversation cornerstones a lot. And you now, from the mayor's office, have the position of oversight in that regard too. Are you a film buff, and what's going on with what's happening in filming in LA?
I think I was chosen for this role not because I'm a Hollywood expert per se, but I'm a problem solver. I know how the city works. I know which levers to press to get things done. And the film industry have had some struggles over the years. Of course, the pandemic, and you've seen headlines about production leaving California for different financial reasons, right? So it might be cheaper to film in other states or other countries. So what my job is, and why I, as president of the board, is tasked with this responsibility, is that we're very much intertwined. My job is to lure production back into Los Angeles by streamlining many of its old archaic processes and making our city a friendly, open for business in terms of production. So we now have a detailed list of landmarks, popular neighborhoods, streets that are very much in demand by our filming industry, whether it's major blockbuster films or their TV shows. But one of the other areas that I'm working on is that even if this particular location is a very desirable location for Hollywood, sometimes the neighbors are not as receptive to the things that are associated with production coming into their street. So I'm also working with our neighborhood council leaders, our city council partners, and our mayor's team to really kind of set that tone, set that expectation, and explain to our residents what are some of the benefits. Yes, some of the street parking might be taken up by production crews for a limited number of days, but that really translates to thousands, sometimes millions of dollars to the local economy that benefits everybody. Recently, Sacramento passed a very historic film tax credit. It builds upon what Mayor Bass helped pass in Sacramento when she was in the state legislature. So that is helping to bring some of that production back. But what I'm focused on is really taking an equity lens into the film permitting process, where different permits incur different levels of cost. So we're looking at ways to, if not only just major blockbuster, but small, low-impact filming also happens in Los Angeles quite frequently. And why don't we lower the barrier in terms of the threshold so that we don't charge you the same amount of money for a major blockbuster film versus a student run or a nonprofit film. So we're looking at a tiered pricing model to implement here in LA so that we welcome all different sizes of production back. So we contract out our permitting services right now with an entity called Film LA, which is a nonprofit. And yes, they were recently awarded a 5-year extension with the city of LA. They serve as sort of that one-stop shop. Yes, there are issues related to the filming process, and we're having some extensive dialogue with Film LA to make some major amendments to that, including tiered pricing. But that's your go-to first entry. And then if there are issues, people can contact me directly. But to give you an example, here, we're inside City Hall in downtown Los Angeles. City Hall is the People's Building, and it is free to film. That doesn't mean all of your costs get covered, but at least to reserve this building, there is no added cost, right? However, the security, janitorial, things will add up. But this is a very desirable landmark that people have shot, courtrooms in, or different types of law enforcement productions and others.
Well, there is so much happening in this, and we barely scratched the surface of everything that the Board of Public Works does. So if somebody wants to learn about what current priorities are or what's happening in the city or plans for the Olympics, what's the best way for them to find out?
Sure, you can go to our main website, which is DPW, Department of Public Works, www.lacity.gov. You'll find pictures of all the 5 commissioners, including myself, and what we do, our background, our assignments, and also links to all of our social media pages so that you'll get the latest information about, Shine LA, and then updates related to the convention center and so much more.
It was the first ever African-American labor organization, born of the trains which connected the country. LA City Council commemorated the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters and Maids and acknowledged how instrumental they were in the fight for civil rights.
We are at the Los Angeles City Hall and proudly able to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters and Maids. It's significant because this is the first African-American union formed in the country. What they had to endure, what they agreed to go through, for the betterment of their children, for the betterment of people that they would never know, was just so incredibly selfless. They were able to plot the course for improvement of an entire community, an entire race of people. They were the on-ramp to the Black middle class. They were the ones that took news across the country.
I think about how the Pullman porters would wear these really nice suits and the hats and everything. They were always very dignified, very respectful, but at home they were struggling. They did a lot behind the scenes, sometimes not really respected by the people they were serving, but they still did their best to be honorable.
People don't understand what these men and women, you find out the women were in on it too. They did the best of everything. They served, they cooked, they shined, many times without sleep, because they wanted to present the right image for people to understand respect. Not calling like they did everybody George. Hey, George, do this. George, do that. It was just easy to call everybody George because they did not respect them enough of being called by a first name. In fact, there's a film out by Robert Townsend. It's 10,000 men named George. A lot of people, until they read the byline, don't know that's about the Pullman porters. But that respect never left them for whoever they were working for, taking care of the children for, ironing clothes for, fixing food for.
The porters, when Mr. Pullman brought them on, they had terrible working conditions. It was just, my ancestors tell me how bad the working conditions were. So the union was called together to give us some rights. So it was really a pivotal part for Black people.
So what most people don't understand is it was A. Philip Randolph, who was the architect behind the March on Washington, who actually organized the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters.
A. Philip Randolph came together with King and the SCLC people and said, hey, labor and civil rights matter and they're the same. They're the same issue. We're pushing for the same thing. And so the great merger then took place.
They became like a conduit to African-American communities because they traveled on trains across the country. And so, but out of that, many of their children and offspring became mayors and leaders and Congress members and all those representatives. And so that was a springboard to the civil rights movement. If it was not for A. Philip Randolph and the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, I would not be in my position I am in today.
What I believe the contribution of the Pullman Porters organization was over the decades, not only to civil rights, but to the wider society. Well, it did a couple of things. The first thing it did was show Black people amazingly that we can organize and get something accomplished that's worthwhile for the betterment of the entire society. And I mean, it was a wonderful betterment opportunity for Black people, but it also, in any time everyone is doing well, it enriches the entire society. So if Black people are doing better, then everyone is going to do better. And so I think that was the greatest contribution. And it showed Black people that we could do it, that we didn't have to be scared. It showed that we could have courage, and with courage, we could accomplish great things.
Every year, our national organization, the Association for the Study of Life and History, they give us our national Black History theme. So our theme this year was African Americans in labor. So we decided that we wanted to focus on the untold stories of just everyday people that have labored to make this country great. So along with Mac Enterprises, we decided that we would reach out and offer the opportunity for people to submit profiles, 75 words and a photo of key people in their lives that have done something incredible, whether they were a maid, whether they were Pullman porter, whether they were architects, but stories of people that have built this country. And so our book, African Americans in Labor, The Roads We've Traveled, it's incredible because you see all these stories, Black police officers, nurses, doctors, and then also we have stories of the Pullman porters. We have stories about the first Black seafarers. We had the first Black surfer. There's some incredible stories that are in there. And so things that people never knew about.
So many people don't realize the value of their own family stories. And a lot of their photos are just tucked away somewhere. And sometimes they bring them out maybe for an obituary, but just in terms of gathering the family around to look at photos and tell the stories and document. Many people haven't thought about doing that, and this was a good opportunity to do that. And folks they were overwhelmed that their stories showed up in a book, a real book.
My grandfather was so very proud of the work that he did as a Pullman porter. Those stories peppered my childhood. Mostly it was hardship stories that were shared.
My dad was on the Santa Fe Rock Island line, and we moved to Texas. So he put us on the train in Dallas. And my grandma and them would pick us up in Kansas and Topeka, and they took exceptional care of us. My sister and I had the best safety, the best food. They looked out for us, and I remember that. So I'm just overjoyed to be here because I experienced it.
What really resonates with me are the stories that my father and my uncle would tell me about all the people that they would meet and how they were treated and how they treated everyone. People would get on the train and they might have been Black and they didn't know where they were going or what they were doing, but the Pullmans were very kind and said, okay, this is where you want to go, this is where you don't want to go, almost like a green book.
My great-grandfather on my father's side was a Pullman porter, and he was actually also a preacher. He was a Baptist minister and did a lot of work just to make it to the top, and for him that was a big thing.
As I looked back over the years and began to understand the kind of strength it took to suffer the humiliation they had to endure every day, the absolute refusal of the wider society, not just for them, but for all Black people. We're seeing it come back today, too, of their humanity, but they maintained, they were hardworking, they held their peace, they showed a lot of strength and a lot of grace. So I'm just really, really proud of not only the work they did, but the example they set, and for the formation of that union to move forward the cause of all Black people.
I mean, if you don't know your history, then you are doomed to, of course, repeat things that were not worthy of being repeated. You really miss the richness of how things evolved, how you arrived to where you are. Certainly for me, having the background of what my grandfather did really laid the foundation for my own ability to have my own home, to be college educated, came from his sacrifice as a Pullman porter. Now we're in position to do that for our children, and we know that we must.
When I was standing in the council chambers today, I was moved to tears just to see how in our own right we've done a lot. We've moved up, we've moved the needle, and we're just continuing on the work of our forefathers.
One word is grateful. Grateful and blessed. Even though this is a city hall, we can't ever take for granted that someone is going to value what you value. We try to promote our history, but someone has to be on the receiving end. And for the council president and other city council persons to feel that this was important enough to commemorate it. And to commemorate it means that it goes down in the official city record. And that's really what I wanted for all of those men and women, especially for those in Los Angeles that were Pullman porters and maids.
It was already heartfelt, but I thought nobody remembered or nobody knew. And to find out that yes, they do, yes, we will. And here we are at the City of Los Angeles City Council. So I'm just proud.
That is a slice of American history that needs to be known. The people that worked on the trains had much dignity, and they were chosen because they knew how to serve people and they were very humane. So what I can tell you in 2025 is that we need that still. We need that humanity. We need that caring. We need that taking care of each other.
While it's celebrating 100 years of lighting the way, LA's Bureau of Street Lighting also has an eye to the future. Streetlights now carry cutting-edge technologies to empower Los Angeles. I sat down with the Bureau's Miguel Sangalang for an illuminating conversation. Well, in 1909, urban planner Charles Mulford Robinson said that the streetlights of Los Angeles were the handsomest in the world. The street lamps have an amazing history here in LA, and they continue to tell their own story. I'm delighted to be joined today by the Executive Director of the Bureau of LA Street Lighting, Miguel Sangalang.
Thank you for having
Lovely
me.
to have you here.
The mission of the Bureau of Street Lighting is to light the way for Los Angeles. I love that mission.
All right, so let's actually talk about the Bureau legitimately. Sure. 250,000 lamps.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot of light bulbs to change.
Yeah, it is. So 250,000 lights connected by 9,000 miles of underground conduit, 27,000 miles of copper wire that power the whole system. We cover almost every neighborhood in the city of Los Angeles. You know, 2 out of 3 streets in Los Angeles will have a street light on it that we manage.
This must be a really fun celebration to celebrate 100 years and all the stories that these lamps tell.
The street light today is part of the background, right? It's something that we know is there. It provides the service, but the genesis of it, the history is far more kind of creative and innovative than I think one might think.
It's my understanding that each neighborhood kind of was responsible for the design of their own lamps in order to represent the neighborhood. So there's an enormous diversity of style and artisanal qualities to all of these.
That's right, that's right. And what we have now is a unique collection of over 400 different designs. Wow. And that's spread throughout the 470 square miles of the city, right? And it pretty much, as you said, kind of grew up with the city. Different neighborhoods, as they would rise and they would want street lights, they would design their own. So you have Wilshire specials, you would have things like the Broadway special, Hollywood special, Van Nuys special. So there's just different ones that the neighborhoods would kind of adopt and say, this is the one that we wanted.
I think they could legitimately be called art. I mean, some of them have turned into art pieces. Obviously, I think most people know Urban Light, which is in front of LACMA. Are there other art installations that have been done with former practical lights that are now not practical but still worth our attention?
Yes, Sheila Klein's Vermonica that actually shows the progression, time progression of all the different street lights.
With all of the diversity of street lamps to choose from, what is, as the executive director, your favorite?
Well, if you're going to put me on the spot like that, I would say the Wilshire special that we have is an amazing piece, again, just because it kind of harkens back to that origin of us. And it's huge. You would never we have them in the field right now. You would never expect that while you're walking on a sidewalk, there's this 5 foot tall, 2 foot wide, like gargantuan streetlight. When you have it next to you, it's that big, right? But when it's up there, it just looks like any other streetlight. Not to say nondescript, but like unassuming kind of light that has a great history. One of the things that most people don't know about the Bureau of Street Lighting, we're one of the largest municipal deployments of EV chargers on the right-of-way.
I was going to ask you.
So about 700, well, we expect to have about 900 by the end of this fiscal year. And those are great opportunities for us to ensure that we are approaching transportation electrification in an equitable way.
And is it being rolled out in certain neighborhoods? As you said, you were looking, for an equitable solution to something like this when EV chargers may not be able to go into a neighborhood that had the resources for it. So is it specific?
We're looking for existing markets and hoping to create emerging markets. What I mean by that is we're going to places where there have been requests, high demand, where we've placed chargers. We're looking at our analytics and seeing, should we place another one close by, right, in order for people to have more usage. But we're also trying to get into places that we don't necessarily see what I would say the private sector. So we're trying to go into places like Hyde Park, right? Like South LA, like the Valley, right? So get away from just what traditionally people would think. That is not just a privilege to have. That's something that we should all have.
Are we ahead of the game when it comes to technology and advancements for something like the Bureau of Street Lighting? Or are we looking to other cities to see how they are doing it and then following suit?
When you look at the world as a whole, there's obviously going to be some places that might do things better here or there, and different types of technology. On average, though, I'd say LA is on the cutting edge, the further ahead than the pack. And I'll say this for a couple things. There's a reason why we became one of the first 5G cities in America, and that's because we started attaching telecom equipment to our streetlights, right? And so we made something that was originally a single use. Now, granted, that single use was transformative. We lit public spaces and made it so people can congregate, have commerce, made it feel safer, right? But the service was the street light. Now we're adding other things that not only reduce the cost of infrastructure itself, but make it so that there's new services that can go onto the city, like 5G connectivity, right? So LA became one of the first 5G cities in America back in 2017, 2018, and that's because we started working together with industry practitioners to see what else we could do.
Very, very cool. All right, so you've worked with the city for a long time. I mean, you've worked in the mayor's office, through a couple of tenures of different mayors, and now you're here and you've been here. What was the biggest surprise coming into this bureau when you looked around and saw what your opportunities were and what your challenges were? The scope of the bureau, the opportunities in the bureau, the history, the fun, the possibility? What was it that you really went, oh, wow, this is cool?
What I was most impressed with was the people when I came in here, because of their willingness to actually try new things. And because of the people, we have tremendous potential, right? So when we're talking about these new technologies, these more efficient ways to light the streets, we're talking about connectivity with telecom partners. We're talking about dynamic lighting. We're talking about air quality sensors that can help inform policymakers about what's going on in their neighborhoods right now, right? So the people actually led to some of these progressions, right? These new things and these opportunities that we have. And so the Bureau itself, with what it has, again, 250,000 streetlights, an electrical system, this penultimate electrical system, that when we're thinking about the future of the city, is going to empower a lot of the new services that we do now. We actually see ourselves now as more of a platform, right? So yes, we have the street light, but there's many different things that you can attach to it, right? There's many different services that you can create from that point there, where we have a very valuable piece of real estate on the public right-of-way that has energy.
Well, people want to learn more about the 100th anniversary, or just about how to call in if they need some help with the lighting on their streets, or just have any questions. What's the best way for people to get in touch? The best way for people to get in touch, well, two things, right? If there's any issues that you have with street lighting, please log your service request with MyLA 311 or call 311 itself. For all other things, and if you're inquisitive about our history, please visit lalights.lacity.org. Thank you so much. This is really, really fun. And that's a wrap on this LA Current.